What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? How much are the D-backs to blame for their recent pileup of injuries and playing keeper or not with the D-backs roster?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. I'm there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we're going to be discussing how much are the D-backs to blame for their recent pileup of injuries. And because of all those injuries and the D-backs looking to be sellers at the deadline potentially, we're playing keeper or not with the D-backs roster. So a jam-packed pod for you guys as always. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. I try to go live on YouTube Sunday through Thursday after D-backs games. I'm currently on the East Coast, so don't expect me to go live this week. It might even be a short week. As you guys have seen, I missed Monday. I probably will miss one more day during the week, but follow me on social media so you can be up to date when I go live, when I drop podcasts. If I'm not going to do a podcast, I tweet it all out at Creator Thomas24 for the personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. But now let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and now let's talk about the injury situation for the D-backs, because day by day, it just seems to be getting worse and worse. Shelby Miller recently placed on the injured list. He is going on the 15-day. Ketel Marte, he's not on the injured list, but he's day-to-day with tight groin. Ryan Thompson, 15-day injured list. Pavin Smith, 10-day injured list. And, of course, everyone else that we have. And the question is, how much are the D-backs to blame when you have a roster littered with injuries like that, like we've seen so far in 2025? And it's not only this season. Go back to last year. I know the D-backs front office and the manager, that's going to be their scapegoat, their scapegoat in this season. They're going to blame injuries. They're going to say the fact that they missed the postseason, the fact that this season was a disappointment. Oh, we would have been there. We would have been good if we didn't have injuries. No, the D-backs have been bad all year. Injuries is not to blame. 2024, I will stand on the hill. If the D-backs had a fully healthy rotation all of last year, I think they would have been a playoff team. I think injuries stopped them in 2024. But why have we been 2 seasons now in a row where the D-backs have had arguably the most talented teams in their franchise history? On paper, one of the best teams in the National League and Major League Baseball. One of the best offenses the last 2 years. You could say arguably the best offense, considering they were number 1 in 24. They're like a top 3-4 offense in 2025. And so you've had this incredible offense, but the pitching has not been there to back it up. And a big piece of it has been because of injuries. You let Brent Strom go this offseason, and so you got a new pitching coach, plus you have injuries. And like the question is, how much are the D-backs and their organization to blame for the injuries and the lack of success we've seen this season? Because listen, injuries can be fluky, right? A guy could blow out his elbow on a random pitch, or a guy like Ketel Marte could hit a double round bases and pull up lame with a hamstring issue. And it's like, that's not on the D-backs. You can't blame them for that one. But some of these injuries, I'm like, you know what? That guy was hurt. You kept pitching him, or you kept hitting him, or that guy was hurt and you didn't even know it. That guy had a fracture. You went it through the x-ray machine and you still didn't even know it. And so I think there has been a level of incompetence with this D-backs training staff this season when you see the volume of injuries, plus the fact it seems like the D-backs are misdiagnosing guys left and right. And so I actually want to go through the list of injuries for the D-backs and try to figure out how many guys can you at least maybe not blame the D-backs, but feel like they had a part of it. Because a guy like Shelby Miller, probably not. I'll put that one just on Shelby Miller, probably being overused. It's not the D-backs' fault, but with AJ Puk and Justin Martinez going out, that's probably just the case of Shelby Miller is not built to be the closer. He's a better high leverage seventh inning arm, but because of the two injuries to the back and the bullpen, Shelby Miller is now on the injured list. Only 15-day IL, but we'll see, because we know with these D-backs relievers, they like to miss the rest of the season, even with the starters. Ketel Marte, I would say that was a weird issue where he looked like he pulled up lame in a game. Um, and the D-backs are being extra precautionary with Ketel Marte. So I would say through Shelby Miller and Ketel Marte, that was more on the players. D-backs have been very cautious with Ketel Marte this season. We know Coors Field, he's going to sit out at least one of those games no matter what. And so D-backs are very proactive with Ketel, but the D-backs try to be proactive with a lot of their players, and that hasn't always led to the success of those players staying healthy. But through Shelby Miller and Ketel Marte, I would say it's not on the D-backs. For Ryan Thompson, I'll probably also say it's not on the D-backs, but a guy like Pavin Smith, who went on the injured list for oblique strain. This is a guy who may have been dealing with the oblique strain for like a week. This is a guy who D-backs fans are saying has been struggling for 6-7 weeks now. And so you combine the fact that he's been struggling and the fact that he was hurt and we were still playing him. That's one that you could put on the D-backs organization. The combination of poor play plus the fact that we were playing him through injury, that's on us. Gabby Moreno, he got hurt and then he kept playing. And then 2 weeks later, we were like, oh, wait, Gabby has actually a fracture. It should not be days. It should be weeks before he returns. And so that one's on Arizona. We were playing one of our premier young guys, one of the best young catchers in Major League Baseball, with a hairline fracture. Like, he is a catcher. He has to throw the ball down to second base. It's no wonder why all of a sudden it was like, wait, why can't Gabby throw that guy out at second base? This was the best person at catching base runners as a rookie, and now all of a sudden it feels like he can't throw out guys at the same rate. Thinking because we were playing a guy with a fractured hand. Kendall Graveman, he's been dealing with health issues all year. I won't put Kendall Graveman on the D-backs. I won't put Dre Jameson on the D-backs since he hasn't been on the major league level. Same with Tommy Henry. But a guy like Justin Martinez, who we visibly saw go out there and not be able to throw harder than 95, 96, and the D-backs said, we're going to make you throw 30 pitches, even though you clearly don't look right. You clearly can't throw the ball hard, but the D-backs still force him out there. I'll put Justin Martinez on the D-backs. Amardo Vargas, that one was on him. That was just an unfortunate injury. But AJ Puk, again, I do think the lack of defined bullpen roles and just throwing out AJ Puk willy-nilly, overuse at the beginning of the season, I do think that led to some injury. Maybe the D-backs weren't like the majority blame shareholder in that situation, but I do think the D-backs need to take some of it on the chin. Maybe even with like Christian Montes Diaca, because maybe he got hurt not pitching for Arizona because he was on the roster for like 2 or 3 weeks and never pitched. Corbin Burns, that's probably on Corbin Burns. I don't think I would blame that one on the D-backs, but also we had a weird situation with Corbin Burns where he didn't start the season right away for the rotation because he said he needed a little bit more time. It's like, why didn't the D-backs figure that out with Corbin Burns earlier in the season? We had to push him back at one point in the middle of the year. He missed time in the middle of the season. So it was already off to a rocky start with Corbin Burns and his health situation with the D-backs in 2025. So I won't put that entirely on Arizona, but they probably do deserve a little bit of blame. Christian Mena, I won't put on the D-backs. Jordan Montgomery, I won't put on the D-backs, and Blake Walston, I won't. But the Pavin Smiths, the Gabby Morenos, the Justin Martinez's, like, you could say a third or a fourth of these players on the D-backs. I'm like, I think the D-backs organization was directly involved, whether it was misdiagnosing an injury, not realizing a guy had a fracture, playing a guy when he's hurt, pitching a guy clearly when he doesn't look right. Like, I don't think the D-backs have had a great season when it comes to evaluating players' health. And so because of that, I do think the D-backs need to take some blame and responsibility in terms of the injury situation this year. And I do think we need to take a deep look at the training staff for 2026. Now we'll discuss which players on this D-backs roster are keepers, or not as we get closer to the MLB trade deadline. But now I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel because summer sports are in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. When I see the D backs are playing, give me the money line, give me Merrill Kelly over on total innings pitch, and give me Corbett Carroll over on total bases. It doesn't hit that often, but when it does, it brings a big smile to my face. One big smile on your face. Visit fanduel.com. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. If your first bet wins, open the FanDuel app today or visit fanduel.com to get started. All right, back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. And now let's play keeper or not with the D-backs roster. And these are going to include guys who are young. These are going to include guys who are not just trade chips. I just want to talk about some guys on the roster and whether you view them as like a core piece or not. This could be expiring contracts, guys who are 22 but locked up for a long time. And we're not going to talk about every single player because I think some guys are obvious. I like Zach Allen as much as we love him. I think we all know he's not a keeper, expiring free agent, having a terrible season. Like it definitely feels like he's going somewhere else. I think there's some other question marks on this roster. So let's talk about it. Gabby Moreno, and some of these guys, again, are clear. Gabby Moreno, I think, is clearly a keeper. He was having a fantastic season, really heating up the last few weeks prior to his injury. He's the one young guy that the D-backs haven't locked up yet to a long-term deal. So can't wait for Arizona to announce that one in the near future. Josh Naylor, to me, is a keeper for Arizona. He is still so young, 28 years old. Does he have the defense of a Christian Walker? Probably not. But offensively, I actually do trust him more. He's batting 299 at me recording this podcast on Tuesday at 8 p.m. East Coast time, over 800 OPS. Probably doesn't have as much power as as Christian Walker either, but he's a 20 home run, 300 average, 800 OPS, and he might even crack 15 steals this season. Like if he's at 20 home runs and 15 steals, like that's a hell of a year for Josh Naylor. You wouldn't expect him to have that much speed, and he has done kind of his Christian Walker impression where he just knows when to go, can read the pitcher. And so I think Josh Naylor is definitely a keeper. I think we all know Ketel Marte is a keeper. I mean, Ketel Marte is easily the best second baseman in the National League. He is absolutely fantastic. I don't even know if there was a debate for who should be starting at second base for the National League All-Star team because it was so clearly Ketel. Since he's come back from injury, he just tore the cover off the ball. He's currently sporting over a 290 average, almost 1,000 OPS. He's got almost 20 bombs, and he's going to finish probably as in top 5 in MVP voting again. Like last year, he was a finalist. He finished third last season. He finished fourth in 2019. I think that 2025, if he can play the rest of the season, this could be Ketel Marte's third top 5 finish in MVP voting, which I think would be absolutely incredible. D-backs should not have a lot of those guys in franchise history. If you wanted to look at Paul Goldschmidt as a quick reference to see how many times he finished top 5 in MVP voting, he did it well, at least for the D-backs, because of course he won the MVP in 2022 with the Cardinals. But with the D-backs, he finished top 5 in MVP voting 3 times. So Ketel Marte has a chance to tie Paul Goldschmidt for top 5 MVP votes, which I think would be really interesting. So of course he is a keeper. Next, Geraldo Perdomo, definitely a keeper. Got the extension this offseason, having a borderline all-star season. Of course, he slowed down a little bit the last couple of weeks, but considering where he started as a rookie, where I didn't think Perdomo was probably a Major League Baseball player, now he looks like legitimately one of the best shortstops in the National League. He's a run producer. He's clutch. He has the best plate discipline of anyone on the D-backs. Baby Juan Soto is how I like to call him, or Baby Luis Arias. Geraldo Perdomo is definitely a keeper. So I think I'm 4 for 4 right now with keepers: Moreno, Naylor, Marte, Perdomo. Maybe that's not a good thing considering we're not a good team, but uh, even the next guy, I know he's a pending free agent, but he has said he wants to stay in Arizona. Eugenio Suarez, almost a 900 OPS, almost 30 home runs, almost 75 ribbies, all before the All-Star break, having a monster career season. Maybe he can match the 49 home runs that he had in 2019, but even if he doesn't, this is a monster season for Eugenio Suarez. He's having a great year, and I love the fact that he wants to stay in Arizona, and I would love for him to stay in Arizona as well. So I have him as a keeper, even though some people would think he should probably be sold at the MLB trade deadline. Now, after Eugenio's the first guy where I might not say keeper, because Moreno, Naylor, Marte, Perdomo, Suarez, those are all keepers to me. I'm sorry. I just have to watch where I put my feet real quick if you're watching the YouTube video, because I know there's a daddy long legs right under my feet, and I just don't want to accidentally step on it. But Lourdes Gurriel, as much as I like him, as much as he's heated up over the last few weeks and really has come on strong for the D-backs, I think he's like the perfect kind of sell high guy at the trade deadline. Been on a heater the last few weeks, pretty consistent year after year. Like, you know where you're going to get out of Lourdes Gurriel. Going to be around 20 home runs, 75 to 80 ribbies, around a 265 average, around a 760 OPS, going to play really solid defense, and just a good glue guy on any really good contender or Major League Baseball team. And so he's a guy that I would actually try to move. I think you could flip him, get something decent, and also replace his position kind of easily in the offseason or through trade. So I think Lourdes Gurriel is a guy who's not a keeper, and I would like to see what kind of return on investment I could get for him. Alec Thomas, I think he also is a guy I would sell high on. Still not even having a fantastic season, but how many like 650 OPS years do we need from Alec Thomas, who I know elite defensive center fielder. I agree. He's one of the best I've ever seen, but he has 357 games under his belt, almost 1,200 plate appearances, almost 1,100 at bats, and his career numbers are 230 average, 635 OPS. He has never hit double-digit home runs in a season, never even had double-digit steals in a season, despite having really good sprint speed numbers. And so I can't say Alec Thomas is really a keeper either for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so I would love to see what we could get for him. Corbin Carroll, obviously a keeper. I'm not going to talk about him. Pavin Smith, once he comes back from injury or at the deadline, if the D-backs want to flip him, guy with over 800 OPS right now, crushes righties, first round pick back in the day. I would love to see what kind of ROI you could get for him, because he is someone that I think is the definition of a sell high. Probably someone should have sold high last offseason when he had that really good 60 game sample size. Now he's giving you another pretty good 79 game sample size. Just look at the slash line. Don't look at the platoon splits, and buy some Pavin Smith stock. If another team does that, I say we sell him, because why shouldn't we? As much as the D-backs front office likes him, I think all D-backs fans know he's more of a flash in a bottle than someone that's a sustainable long-term piece to your franchise. So the D-backs should definitely explore offers for Pavin Smith at the MLB trade deadline. Now we'll discuss some other players who I think are keepers or not on the Arizona Diamondbacks roster. We'll discuss that in segment number 3. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Open Phone, because if you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the number one business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Did you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? Open Phone solved that instantly. No more problems like that. Open Phone has solved all your issues. Open Phone is offering Locked On Dimebacks listeners 20% off their first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's openphone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's wrap up the podcast by discussing a few more keepers or not from the Arizona Diamondbacks roster. And I think tomorrow we'll probably hit some pitchers. I think we'll just close out segment number 3 with some position players, and then we could continue this segment on tomorrow's podcast because I need to do some evergreen topics, guys. It is a little bit tough for me to live react to these games this week. At least I will be back on Sunday in Arizona on the West Coast, back to the normal scheduled stuff for this podcast. But for this week at least, you guys need to bear with me as it's a little bit tougher for me to do some live podcasts and really react to live news. But let's continue and talk about guys who we think we should keep versus guys who we think we should sell at the deadline or just sell in general. And we'll continue with our position players. Tim Tawa, I think, is the perfect kind of guy that sits on the fence for this question because 3 weeks ago, I would have said definitely keep. Super utility guy, could see him around for a long time. But now numbers have come down a little bit. Option to AAA during the midst of his struggles. And it's like, should we try to, flip him like a Dominic Fletcher? Has he shown enough? Can we get a Christian Mena type return for him? Or is he actually a guy that should be around for the next 5-6 years as just a super utility player? I think right now I wouldn't sell high on Tawa. I don't even think it would be selling high on Tawa. I think he could increase his value. I see Tawa as a guy that could stick around and play a bunch of different positions and be on the major league level for the Arizona Diamondbacks. But that doesn't mean he has to do it for the next 5 or 6 years. If next season the D-backs are back in the playoff race and they need, a different position of strength, and Tim Tawa, a trade with him can fill that position, I think the D-backs would be open to it. But right now, I would say Tim Tawa is, a semi-keeper, and the D-backs like him enough to keep him around. But if they get a good package, he will be traded probably at the offseason and not this deadline. But Randall Grichuk, as much as I love him, I would trade Randall Grichuk to see what he could get. He is 33, and I just want to see him on a team that actually plays him. He's had to play more because of injuries to Corbin Carroll and some outfielders, but Randall Grichuk is a guy who's been severely underused despite being fantastic since arriving in Arizona. If you look at his career numbers so far with the D-backs, he's played 167 games now, a 2.7 average, a 812 OPS, and 17 bombs and 64 ribbies. Like, you'll take that in almost a full season worth of work. I think Randall Grichuk's been a very good player, has hit a ton of doubles, too, for the D-backs during his time in Arizona. A good locker room guy. I don't think you're getting a ton for Grichuk, but I think someone should trade for him because he is a pretty solid player and someone that I think is better than the numbers. Jose Herrera, I'm going to say he's not a keeper considering his slash line is terrible. And there's already a guy on the roster who the D-back just picked up out of nowhere who I would say is a keeper more than Jose Herrera. James McCann, somehow at 35 years old, coming in for the D-backs. Slash line really good right now. Of course, a small sample size. He is 6 for 18 in his at-bats, but just looks way more comfortable behind the plate than Herrera catching games. Better at calling games, better defensive catcher, and so far offensively, he's way better than Herrera too. So Herrera, I'm out on, and at least for the rest of the season, I'm in on James McCann. Jake McCarthy, he's just a guy I can never quit. I know the slash line's bad this year, but I've seen him do too much. I'm not saying Jake McCarthy has to be a keeper for the next 5 years, but I'm not selling him when his value is the lowest. If he gets hot again in 2026 or the rest of this season, and then we want to trade him in the offseason, sure. But when he's batting 147, I am not trading Jake McCarthy. I will not sell low on Jake McCarthy. He's been one of my favorite players in Arizona since his rookie season, where he came up and really turned it on, was so important for the D-backs in the second half of 2024. Give me Jake the Rake McCarthy because I do not want to see him go anywhere. Yamardo Vargas, I think obviously he's not a keeper. We're not going to talk about him. Jordan Lawler, I think he's deserving a longer conversation than is warranted because a guy like Corbin Carroll, obviously keeper, you don't want to discuss it unless we're getting like Paul Skeens back in a Corbin Carroll trade. There's really no one you would want to trade Corbin Carroll for. But a guy like Jordan Lawler, if there's a good package, if there was another Garrett Crochet type pitcher who is under 25, who you know is an elite stud, I think the D-backs should consider a deal like that and should make a deal like that. Now, I don't know who that pitcher is off the top of my head, but if you could find, because let me just Google real quick. How old is Garrett Crochet? Crochet is 26 right now. So I think I would still do that deal. 26, you could probably have him for like 7 years of really elite stuff. And so if the D-backs can find their version of Garrett Crochet, I would do that if I was the Arizona Diamondbacks, because as much as I love Jordan Lawler, he hasn't really flashed that much. I mean, he had 19 at bats and had 0 hits in 2025. And so we're still waiting for Jordan Lawler to really show us what his potential is, because he's had 2 cups of coffees with the D-backs now. He's had 50 at bats and he has 4 hits total. He has not really shown anything in the D-backs uniform. And so I don't want to sell him when his value is the lowest, but also if we could get like a Garrett Crochet type deal done with Jordan Lawler, I would do that. And then the final guy I want to discuss among the position players is probably Blaze Alexander, who I think is a perfect kind of guy to try and find in a trade package. The D-backs had him for a short time at the beginning of last season where he looked really good to start the season. Defense started to struggle, affected his offense, and then he really didn't get playing time the rest of the year, kind of up and down between Reno and Major League level. And in 2025, it feels like the D-backs don't have a ton of confidence in Blaze Alexander. So it's probably better to trade him now when he's still young, when he did show he had some offensive tools and skills going back to last season. I don't think you want to just sit and wait on an asset like Blaze Alexander. It would probably be smarter to sell him and see what you could get for him. So if the D-backs want to sell Blaze Alexander, as much as I like him, as much as we talked about his name last year, how he had the coolest name in baseball, the hot start to the season, it's probably better for the D-backs to see what they could get for Blaze Alexander. So I would probably sell him as well. And that's all my thoughts on the D-backs position players when it comes to buy or keep. We'll try to do the D-backs pitchers tomorrow on another D-backs podcast. But that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Hopefully come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. Check out Locked On Diamondbacks on Twitter or at Career Thomas 24 for my personal account to see if I am doing a podcast tomorrow, because I'll tweet if not. But until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.